Okay, so I'm out of town, so this isn't my normal house, and people are sleeping. No, nobody's sleeping. I don't know what I'm saying. Just kidding. People are doing things in the other room, so I'm trying to be kind of quiet. But I wanted to talk to you guys about running, and I made some notes here. And since I've started running, I've just picked up some tips and things along the way that I just wanted to educate people on, because there's not a lot of good information out there about running and running shoes. Well, there's a ton of information, but it can be very confusing, and none of it is actually simplified. So I figured, why not just do it myself? So that's what I did. So the first thing, have multiple shoes for running. So I've got this pair that I just bought. They're the Hoka brand, and they are the Hoka One. I don't know what brand they actually are, or what the name is, or anything like that, but it says W216 on the side of it. I don't know if that helps, but I got these recently. These are for running, super high arch. I got fitted at the running store. These are my trail running shoes, the Fresh Foam Heroes. I got these about a year ago, so they're pretty worn out at this moment. And then these are just my walking shoes, Fresh Foam New Balance 1080s. Then I also have the Brooks Adrenalines. Those are my favorite pair in the other room. So having multiple shoes for each activity is very important, but I'll get there. The biggest thing with running shoes is that if you only have one pair, then you're using them for everything. You want to use each pair for a specific purpose. So, like, these are my running shoes. These are my trail running shoes. I never take these on the trail, and I never wear these normally. I have in the past, but I prefer not to. It's only when it's like last resort, like I didn't bring another pair and they're in my car, so I have to wear them. But I keep them separate because these ones are made differently than these ones, and this one's like specifically made for trail running with this like little lip on the end for like when you're going downhill to help like have a wider base, and these are just for regular running on pavement. So they're both differently made so that they're ready for each activity. So just know that if you're wearing them for different things, they're not going to feel as good. My trail runners, when I'm running on a regular pavement, they just feel like super grippy and a little bit like heavier. And then when I wear the running shoes on the trail, you can feel every single rock and nook and cranny, and it doesn't really feel good. So I just recommend wearing them for each activity that you're trying to do and not mixing them up. Next thing, what is the point of a trail runner? So if you like going on hikes, but you like jogging the hike or anything, honestly, I prefer wearing these now over hiking boots anyway. They're just way more comfortable. I wore them yesterday when I went on a hike. They're designed thicker at the base. They're designed thicker, and then here as well, this little lip. It's to help with rocks and things, so that when you're going downhill, you can kind of have more surface area gripping the shoe. And then, yeah, they're just wider, has another toe protector, so for like rocks and if you kick anything, just more security, I would say, in the shoe. Feels more comfortable. Pretty lightweight also, and like, yeah, overall they're pretty bouncy, and you can't feel any individual rocks. Like, it's way thicker at the bottom, if you can see that, and you can see where like I've kind of worn it out, but yeah, overall a much wider base on the shoe to help make sure you're stable when you're like on the trail. So those are definitely worth it. Another one, get a separate pair of walking shoes. So this is my walking shoe. Basically, it's got like this like area which is super comfy. Like, I never get blisters on any of these shoes. It's got like a cup, like there's a material in here to keep it this shape. And then right here it's just soft, so that way it goes up higher on the foot, so it's like secure and it doesn't rub. And then also if you can see here, I have like a higher arch, so it's pretty thick material here. And there's a lot for like arch support. And yeah, these are a little bit worn out now, but these are pretty normal. And I would say I've worn these quite a bit. I wear these like when I'm working. The point is that they're just like for walking, so they're just more support overall, more cushiony. They felt like clouds when I first wore them. Honestly, now they're a little worn out, so they don't feel as good, so I want to replace them. But yeah, walking shoes as opposed to running shoes. Walking shoes will usually have more support. Also, it's good to invest in a good pair of walking shoes, especially if you stand for work a lot. That way you're comfortable and not wearing the walking shoes as running shoes. Again, just having a separate pair designated for each activity, then you can more like log the miles and everything like that when you're doing it. Now, next thing is when you see the horizontal lines on the shoes, that's how you know that they're actually worn out. So if you look at, I'll show you this one first. This one, these are brand new. They're pretty new. You can see like they're like right here, there's like a little bit of wear and tear, just teeny bit, not really completely like fresh pair of kicks. These, you can see all the wear and tear on them. You can see that like the little geometric spaces that are supposed to be there, and then you can see all these little inside things. What that means is that the foot's been compressing it so much so that the foam doesn't bounce back as right. See right here? That's not supposed to happen with your shoes. It's supposed to do that, and then it's supposed to bounce back. But the older they are, and when you can see those shoes, like those lines, that means it's probably about time to replace them. Which, if you like them and they seem comfortable, you can keep wearing them, but eventually you kind of just gotta like recycle them, ditch them, and get a new pair, especially if you're starting to notice any issues that you had before coming back. That's when you want to replace them again. Another one, if you can tell less bounce when you're standing on them, it doesn't feel right anymore. You can kind of squeeze your own shoe, like on the inside, and you can feel like, does this feel like it's not really giving me much give? That's how you know that it might be also time to replace them too, if they're like not as bouncy as they were when you first bought them. Now, look at the bottom and see the visual wear spots on the inner outer ball of your foot and the heel as well. So, this is another one of my older shoes. If you look at it, you can see the toe is like super worn out, and you can see the heel area is super worn out, and the grooves are way flat, especially right here. Like the grooves are almost flat in that area. So you can see exactly where you put the wear and tear on your shoes. So especially if you look at your shoe and you see, okay, like right in this spot and this spot, or right on this spot and this spot, it means you're turning your foot a certain direction as you're walking. Every single time you're walking, you're putting the repetitive motion on one side. So your foot's like inverted or everted. Inverted going in, everted going out. So that's kind of the way to know where you're putting the distribution on your foot. But at running stores, if you get fitted, they'll do one that has maybe a higher arch to balance out your foot and then keep everything even for you. So especially if you hadn't been sized before and then you look at your shoe and you see that it's like tilted differently, that's kind of what the running store will try to even out for you. So mine's pretty evenly distributed. Even on these, it's pretty similar, but I put a lot on the inner side of the toe, inner side of my big toe. That side's usually, that's like more worn out than the right side is. So I kind of like, my ankles go in a little bit when I run, which I know from also watching the video, so it makes sense. On the shoe you can see it too. And you can probably see it on your socks too. If you look at your socks, and you can probably see, especially if they're like lower quality socks, you can probably tell. Now, yeah, honestly, if you're planning on hiking a lot, I recommend giving trail runners a shot over hiking boots. I used to think I needed the security of the hiking boots to go all the way up my ankle, and then I realized that when you're doing trail running, you're stabilizing the ankle a lot more, because every single time you go over a rock, your ankle and your knees and your joints are all figuring out how to make you level, so your body's actually adapting to every single time you're going over a rock. So you're strengthening your ankles every time you go on a hike. So that's why I like trail runners, because I got used to that and I don't have the fear anymore of needing like a boot to cover my ankles to keep from like rolling my ankle, because you just use this more when you're stabilizing it. So I would try trail runners out. Like, you can even just go to the store and try them on, see if they feel comfortable. So, because I much prefer them over typical hiking shoes. A lot of hiking shoes are just super uncomfortable, and my feet hurt quicker in them because they're not really, a lot of them aren't really made for your body or your foot. They're just kind of generic. They don't have any like arch support or anything. They're just super flat. So I don't like them, but that's just me. Now, sizing. So these are all size 8.5. When I was buying my own shoes, I was buying size 7 or 7.5. Little did I know, when I went to the running store, they're like, no, like, try on this 8.5. And I was looking at it like, are you guys dumb? Why are you trying to make me wear that's like a size and a half bigger than what I normally wear? And the truth is, when you're running or walking or just throughout the day, your feet actually swell. So if when you went to the running store or wherever you went and you like got a pair of shoes and they felt good and maybe you had some room in it, after you're done running, your feet swell. So if you ever notice, like when you're running and you'll know your shoes are too tight, if you ever notice like pain on like the nail, like on your nail, like either the sides or the top, or if like your toes just feel like they're pressed together, or if you look at your feet and you have bunions, like where your big toe is like literally starting to curl around, or like the bone is sticking out. If you're having any foot issues, if your feet hurt, if you have like plantar fasciitis, the bottom hurts, if you're having pain of any kind, your shoes just don't fit you right. That's just the truth of it. You really shouldn't have much pain when you're running. That's what I learned the hard way after years of having foot pain and then switching to a bigger size and shoes that actually fit and gave me the support than not having it anymore. So that's what I would recommend, is like, if you have any of those issues, go to a running store, get sized, and you probably just have to size up. So that's what was interesting. And then the first time I went to the running store, I was an 8, and the next time I went back, they actually had me in an 8.5. So your feet actually change, and the more you run also, if you did get into running, your feet shape actually changes. So yeah, so I'm an 8.5 wide, and before I was buying 7s. And so now I can't even wear the 7s. They don't feel right because they feel way too tight on me. In regular shoes, like I have a pair of combat boots I just bought, and those are size 8. So it just depends, and the sizing of everything is different. Every single brand is going to be a different size also, but you want to have room in the shoe when you're wearing it. So in terms of the amount of room, the camera's at a weird angle, so I don't know how I'm going to show you this, but here, we're going to do this. But this is my foot, this is my toe. So there's about a thumb distance. This is all just spaced. There's a thumb distance. You want about a thumb or a thumb and a half when you're measuring for your shoes. So at first that seemed like a lot. I was like, well, that's like a good amount of space. I don't need all that. You do. Your feet need it while you're running. And so very helpful. When you're putting on the shoe, just kick your foot back, like kick your heel back to the very back of the shoe, then lace it up, and then see if there's about a thumb distance, and then you know you're good. Now, let's see. So, yeah, the biggest thing, just overall, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about, but if you're someone who's had foot issues in the past, or maybe you haven't had issues but you're getting into running, you'll start noticing how much the shoes that you're wearing do affect your runs. And especially if you have a bad shoe, you'll notice it in your foot first off, then you'll notice it in your ankles, then you'll notice it in your knees, then you'll notice it in your hips, and you can even have shoulder pain or neck pain that's all coming from the wrong type of shoe or the wrong way that you're actually walking. So I highly recommend getting sized, and it can be pricey. Honestly, the average of these shoes about $110 to $130 each pair, so it's not cheap. I spent my entire paycheck one time on getting all of them squared away because I never had a proper pair of running shoes, and when I did, it changed everything. Like, I was actually able to run long distances. And so that's why I preach it so much, because I could not run longer than like a minute without like my feet hurting, just because I never had the right size shoe. Then the big thing, just shoes, they affect how you walk, how you lean. If you like invert or evert your foot, it'll determine that. So the way that you actually walk, if you invert your ankle, like if this is your foot, this is your leg, I mean, if your foot goes this way, your ankle goes that way, and like it's just a chain. Your whole body will feel it, especially on a certain side, depending on how you're doing that. So running shoes, what their goal is if you're like walking like this, is just to straighten you out. That's like the entire goal of these running shoes. Now, the biggest thing is just that I hope you learn something, and I hope you pay a visit to a running store just to get fitted, even if you don't buy the pair or it's too expensive or anything like that, just to see what it really should feel like, to understand, and then make the switch over time to find what works for you. And the last thing is to remember, and this is something I'm teaching myself, is that remember that replacing your old shoes is almost as important as the original purchase itself. If you're not replacing your shoes when they get old, you're still in the same position as you were before you got fitted. That's why these guys, I'm still wearing them right now. I'm wearing them out, but I know, like I told you guys, they're not as bouncy. They got all these things on the side. They're not as nice as they once were when I bought them, so I need to replace them soon, because otherwise I'm walking around and I can tell some of the old issues that I had come back when I wear those. So I hope you learned something. I hope you take this information and go do something with it. But I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you later, and I will come back at you with more running information and tips and trips and tips and tricks that I have learned in this past year of going from doing no running to doing a half marathon last week. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. I don't know how to end this, but oh.